For those of you who don't know, PechaKucha is a format that started in the design industry in Japan. It's 20 PowerPoint slides, 20 seconds a slide, so a little story gets told in 6 minutes and 40 seconds, driven by images and graphics and visuals, not by PowerPoint bullets. Anyway, it's a lot of fun. If you haven't seen one of these before, as I mentioned, this is the 5th one that I've done. I appreciate all the folks that have helped. Actually, I have a couple of people here who've done some of these in the past. Wendy, I know you're here, over here, and let's see, Tim, actually. Tim's one of our presenters today, and he's done one in the past. Russ. Anyway, got a number of people who've done these in the past, so thank you for participating. And with that, we will get ready to rock and roll. My first speaker is Lee Emke, who will be talking about reinventing the Minnesota Zoo and himself. Lee?
Well, thanks, Rick. And just to be clear, I'm Lee Emke, the director of the Minnesota Zoo. And I guess with that, I'm ready to roll. Okay. This is a story about a personal reinvention, but it's also about an institutional reinvention. The Minnesota Zoo, which you all know, 35 years ago it opened, has been transformed. And the story of how I got there is, it was kind of a transformative one as well. I started out like just about every other kid interested in animals. I saw, when I was 5 years old at the Fresno Zoo where I grew up, a black rhino, and it made an impression on me that has never left me. The power of that animal, the amazing prehistoric nature of it. How cool was that? And from that point on, I was into animals. That was going to be my life. It was very clear. Somehow along the way, though, I got practical, and I went to law school. But while I was in law school, UC Hastings in California, I picked up an issue of Smithsonian Magazine that talked about the zoo of the future that had just been built in Minnesota. And it really intrigued me. But at the same time, I was moving ahead as a lawyer. I was working as an environmental lawyer. Totally unintentional. This is a California condor. There were only 27 left in the world, and they were all brought into zoos for breeding. I was working for the Sierra Club Legal Defense Fund, and they sued to prevent that. They said, we'd rather have these animals die out in nature than be saved through a captive breeding program. I thought that was wrong. And that got me to change career paths, and I went to school to study landscape architecture with a focus on designing zoos, much like this master plan for the Minnesota Zoo that was done back in 1969. I moved to New York City, went to the Bronx Zoo, got to work with some new species called New York contractors. That was enlightening, to say the least. But while I was doing it, I had the chance to build some extraordinary exhibits for what is, I believe, still the best zoo in the world. The primary exhibit I built was something called Congo Gorilla Forest, opened in 1999. It is kind of the gold standard for what a zoo exhibit can be. It takes people through a journey where they connect with animals, but it also provides millions of dollars in direct conservation funds to help save those animals in nature. Every dollar that's raised there goes back to Africa to save gorillas in the wild. And it was one of those projects. It was a $50 million project. Took almost 8 years to build. It was one of those things where I said, what am I going to do next? How am I going to top this? This was a project of a lifetime. And lo and behold, a search firm from Minneapolis called and said, we need a director for the Minnesota Zoo. And before you know it, I'd moved here in June and had a meeting with my first boss. I don't know if you can all see who that is. That's Jesse Ventura. A whole new world. The New York contractors were looking pretty good for a while after I had a couple of those meetings. But it's been all about engaging with the governor, with the legislature, with the community, and there's really been a full decade, actually now 12 years, of growth and change at the zoo through investment by the state, but more and more through investment by the community, foundations and individuals and corporations here in Minnesota. And I think the zoo is starting to reach its potential. A first project that kind of symbolized that, the Wells Fargo Family Farm. This was the first project at the Minnesota Zoo built entirely with private money. Private donors gave the state a new exhibit at the Minnesota Zoo that really celebrates the history of farming in our state and connects kids who don't know what farms are about to the reality of farming. 5 finding ways to get people close to animals. We started building exhibits that get you nose to nose with some of the wonderful creatures at the zoo, kind of counteracting what had happened in the past of the big distant exhibits, the Emperor's New Clothes Zoo, as some people used to call it, where you don't see animals because they're hiding. We found ways with fairly low budgets to redo major portions of our zoo and add diversity, animals like lemurs, which when we were growing up, no one knew what a lemur was. Every kid in the world does now. Adding that to the collection and to the offerings has been great. And just finding ways to be creative with an amazing staff. The Minnesota Zoo traditionally didn't exhibit African animals. We figured out how to bring them in just for the summer when it's pretty tropical here in Minnesota, and people loved it. Again, being creative with the land that we have and the resources of our staff to take the zoo experience to the next level. Other projects have followed. We're the Minnesota State Zoo. We had a Minnesota exhibit that was literally black painted cinder block when I got here. It couldn't have been less attractive. We've turned it into one of the highlights of the zoo, again, using internal resources and internal creativity to make it happen. That preceded kind of the biggest new change at the zoo a few years back. We opened Russia's Grizzly Coast. This has won national awards for exhibit design, and it's a model. We have people from all over the zoo community around the world coming to see what this exhibit's all about, and our public has responded well, they're coming through the door in record numbers. Again, the idea of creating natural habitats to show animals in the context of their environment, but also get people close. How do you do both? And I think Grizzly Coast is a sterling example of how design can really change an experience in the zoo. I'm ahead of myself here. How did that happen? Just wanted to say we finished up a major project called Heart of the Zoo, where we actually changed the entrance to the zoo. You all know about curb appeal. That first impression, so critical. It's a green design, it's LEED certified, so we're kind of walking the walk, talking the talk. The zoo has really turned a corner, I think, and has become the great institution it was originally conceived to be. And to bring it full circle, our conservation programs internationally, one of them is now focused on that very same black rhino that I saw as a kid. We're saving them in Namibia. You've heard about the poaching crisis there. Namibia is the one country in Africa where they're not being poached, and it's because of an ecotourism economic development program that we're spearheading as part of a partnership with the zoo. So for me, it's been a pretty wonderful journey to get to do what I love. There's no boundary between work, play. It's all the same. It's all one and the same. And I hope if you haven't had a chance to come see the results, you will soon. Thanks very much.
So I didn't say, I actually was on the board of the zoo for 8 years, and it's a wonderful organization, and if you haven't been out there for a while, huge change has occurred, and they would love to have you back out, so thank you, Lee. Tim Murray is our next speaker, and he's going to be talking about impact investing. And again, Tim has spoken in the past, and appreciate Tim's support. And with that, let's give Tim a warm welcome.
Before I start, I want to get an opportunity. How many of you have served in the military or have children that have? Thank you for your service. I want to introduce my son, Captain Michael Murray, just back from Afghanistan. Michael, stand up. This is a shameless plug because I have the microphone. He's a logistics expert. He's looking for a job. Somebody hire him, please, okay? Thank you. All right, I am ready to roll. I'd like you to think about the money that you have invested. I want you to think about your favorite charity. I want you to think about the problems that you're passionate about solving. And think of, could there be a way to fuse those two? Could I make money and solve social problems? That's what impact investing is all about. It's pursuing profit with purpose. It's where money meets meaning. It's a philosophy that says, I can invest anywhere. I want to invest where I can make a difference. Impact investing was coined by a couple of guys, Jed Emerson and Anthony Bug Levine. I love that name. At the Rockefeller Center, where they began to develop alternative methods for measuring return on investment. And they created the term called blended value. Now, admittedly, the landscape and the map for blended value is more Galileo than it is Google Map. So a lot of what I'm going to do today is borrow from some of the work that's been done, but also some of the work that I'm doing over at the University of St. Thomas. I would contend that many of us in this room who are 59 or older and are baby boomers are making a difference, or we're thinking about, how can I make a difference? I'm on the back part of my life. What difference have I made in this journey? Over at the University of St. Thomas, I have the opportunity and the privilege to teach many young, bright men and women. One of the things we're working on is developing a center of excellence for impact investing. We'll be launching a white paper and hopefully creating a brand new and challenging way by which many of you as baby boomers can make decisions and change the way things are done. Now, being a professor, I have to make some graphs, of course. So on the left, we have social return for investment, and down on the bottom axis, we have traditional financial returns. And basically, we're attempting to measure the impact. My son, who's a math major, is helping me here, and basically, we're developing a formula that basically calculates the amount of capital, the companies involved, the amount of compassion, the feelings that I get from my investments, the community, the impact on the community, and then ultimately for myself. Because most of us make selfish decisions based on where we want to put our money. This concept's not new. I would argue it's been around since at least the Quakers. This is an investment committee meeting here, you can tell. Of course, the dog is in the lower right-hand corner. They're reviewing proposals that have basically a criteria for investing. They had what they called a triple bottom line. We got to make money. We got to impact our social environment, but most importantly or equally, we have to have a spiritual impact. So the Quakers only invested in Quaker-type projects, and they had a self-feeding system. They had few issues because most of their issues were solved through their investments. Somehow along the line, we lost our way and we separated these two. There's a jealously guarded separation between profit-making and charitable giving. A lot of it, candidly, is inefficient and it's turfy. For those of you who work with nonprofits, how many times have you asked, there's like 9 of us all trying to do the same thing, and we're all out shaking people down. Fortunately, there are disruptive forces out there. I love disruptive forces. Those who know me, I'm a disruptive force in most parties. So what's that? China, world power. Midwest, Middle East, and even Europe, Euro. What's emerging is new business models, and I contend that as baby boomers, you will begin to demand opportunities to invest only in those businesses that not only make money, but are making a difference in the marketplace. Now, why is that? The main reason is that because those of you who have been out, how many of you are on a nonprofit and have gone out and tried to raise money? It's getting tougher, isn't it? And I got to tell you, it's going to get tougher. As healthcare gobbles up more and more of our monies as we get older and sicker and fatter and all those problems that come along, the discretionary income isn't going to be there. Traditionally, we solve problems, and we're good at that in the U.S., and then we take that model. When the problem gets bigger, we just try to apply that model, and then when it scales, we even apply that to a bigger problem, and the problem is inefficiency. This is what government looks like. This is what large nonprofits look like. This can't last. We got some serious problems, serious challenges on the horizon. And I would contend at best, they're challenging. At worst, the outlook is bleak if we continue to do the way we've done it before. Now, fortunately, there's a solution, and that's you. As smart investors, I believe that you should begin to demand only those investment products that are making a difference. This will be a groundswell opportunity. The marketplace will respond only when investors say, hey, what impact does this company have on the marketplace? What percentage of their profits are going into issues? Good examples. Those of you familiar with fair trade and coffee, Several funds have come together and have put a $200 million fund together in Latin America to fund 300 different farmers that have resulted in economic growth, reduction in poverty, literacy. The investors are making money, and the system is working. In town here, low-income housing brought together large financial institutions, family foundations, family offices, put a $75 million deal together, and in less than 10 years have significantly driven down the percentage of homelessness in both St. Paul and in Minneapolis. Lastly, think about what is it that you want to do with your money? What's your legacy? How are you going to make a difference with your money and what you're passionate about, and begin demanding opportunities to make impact investments? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. Appreciate that. And speaking of impact investing, coincidentally, the next speaker is going to be talking about solar and why we should be looking at it now. Please welcome Alex Hecker.
Thank you. I'm going to try to do this with my new mini iPad. Get that thing in there? Okay, never mind. I'm going to hold it. All right, let's roll. Why solar? You probably have all heard a lot about it. We see it every day. There's a couple names floating around like Solyndra, and wondering why we're doing it. So I'm here today to talk about basically why it's needed and the basics and opportunities. Okay, so we need power, right? I mean, we all have 100 of these different devices floating around, taking up lots of power. There's base load power, industrial, transportation. And I already didn't keep up with my iPad. So we need a lot of power. Here's a photo of the world at night. The highlighted spots are lights, and I think that's an amazing photo showing, where the power use is, and showing that we need a lot of power. It also shows where the areas of wealth is, because wealth and power are directly related. Here's a graph depicting the relationship between the Human Development Index and per capita energy use. You'll see Iceland way over there on the far right. But as the world begins to develop, you'll see that we need to have more power. I've already fallen behind a little bit. Here's the sources of power, and you probably all know coal. That's obviously a big thing. Natural gas. This is a graph from about 6 months ago, so it's probably more like 30% natural gas and less on the coal. But the reason we need to go solar is because we need to do on-site power generation, because power is about 10% of power is lost through transmission lines from the power plant to the source. And maybe that doesn't seem like a big deal. 10% is not that big. But when you make an equation to gasoline, it's of 112 billion gallons of gas. I know it's a large number, and kind of hard to comprehend, but that's about half of our annual use in America. So it's a lot of power that's just wasted, and power's hitting every inch of the earth with the sun every day. Now that 2.4% renewable, which was in the previous graph or a couple graphs ago, is all the different renewable energies. Solar's only a portion of that. And I'm contending that because of the transmission loss and because of this, 130 terawatts of solar hits the earth on an annual basis. Again, a really large number to comprehend. That equates to 6 times the amount of power used right now by humans. So there's enough power hitting the earth with solar to more than satisfy our needs. Now, the issue is transmitting it to solar, using the solar to create the energy. And it's basically the same thing that's happening in photosynthesis. I'm not a scientist, I'm an architect, so I am an expert at everything an expert at nothing, and both at the same time. I wanted to show this map of the United States to show that Minnesota, although today would not be a good example of it, is actually pretty good at power. There's 4.2 kilowatt hours per day that hit Minnesota. So the way the solar panel works is that it basically the photovoltaic phenomenon produces the polarization of electric charges, thereby creating electricity. And I had to read that because it is kind of hard to understand, but it's a pretty basic thing. And the solar panels themselves, well, they translate the sun's power into energy through that photons. And you can see that, I apologize for this cheesy graph, but I thought it showed it pretty well, and I like this guy with the sunglasses, so I figured, what the hell. Now, bringing it back to Minnesota again, there is a great company here in Minnesota called 10K Solar, and the great thing about these guys is they're nerds, basically. They send me emails in the middle of the night saying, oh, what about this or what about that? But they have retooled the solar panel. They're, in my mind, the best solar panel in the world. And what they've done is, in the previous graph, which is now I'm getting really far behind, is rewired it to be low voltage and also created it where the solar panel always works no matter if it's partially covered. They also worked with 3M on a film that's on the back side of the solar panels, and it actually reflects only the energy-generating waves of the sun, thereby upping the power percentage of the solar panels. Rough numbers, these are probably about 30% more efficient than the normal solar panel that's out on the market. So where to put them? Well, on-site energy generation is the way to go. This is Kim Bartman's new restaurant in South Minneapolis. This is a solar pavilion for her, what's going to be the largest solar-powered beer garden in the world, which is going to be awesome. So here's a graph I wanted to show you about, the buildings, and, is it really that big a deal? Does it need to be on site? Well, obviously industry and transportation takes up a lot of power, but 41% of our power is used by the buildings that we occupy. So generating the power right there is the best way to do. More importantly is that you can actually make money doing it. The incentives and rebates and subsidies right now are really aggressive in Minnesota. You can get 90% of a system paid for. It's about a 2 to 3 year payback. It depends on your power use and a bunch of different things, but you can have money at the end of the thing. They last 35 years. So I thought this was a great quote that Mr. Chu said the other day, and we need to really pull our head out of our you-know-whats, and the Stone Age didn't end because we got out of stones. We needed to start thinking differently. So that's it. Solar to stones.
So Alex is an architect, and he was working with 10K Solar, and I knew some of the folks that invested in 10K Solar. Company's doing great. And so when Alex sent me his idea, and he had 10K Solar in there, kind of piqued my interest a little bit. And so thanks for your work on that front, Alex. Appreciate it very much. Okay, so is this the first showing of your concept to the public? Okay, so Dave Herrig, in a classic entrepreneurial fashion, did not follow the rules as to when he was supposed to submit his idea. In fact, he was really late. So he's the one who's making us go past 1 o'clock. Anyway, Dave and I actually had talked about this. I like the idea. It's kind of fun. It's interesting. And he hadn't unveiled it to the public, and he wanted to show it to you all to get some feedback. And so I thought, what better place to show a new idea than this group? And so Dave Herrig is going to be talking about 1 more hour.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Who's starting? You can go ahead and hit it. So I've got a challenge for you today to think about. What would you do with 1 more hour? 1 more hour of free time to do whatever you want. It's wide open. Not interactive, but just think about it. Just think about it. Who in your life could benefit from your time? Your spouse, your kids, Your friends? You? I literally left this slide blank to reinforce this. So you have my permission to spend the next 10 seconds just thinking about that hour. 1 hour, free time, gardening, go crazy. Did it put you in a good spot? Thinking about that hour? Can you quantify it? How much is that hour worth to you? Here's another challenge. How many products exist today primarily because they give you time back? They give you hours that let you do what you hopefully just thought of 3 slides ago. Can you think of any? I can too. I can think of tons of them. Some are new, some are old. Here's what they tend to have in common. They tend to involve the combination of service and mobility. Almost every single time. Service and mobility. Is that trend growing? The trend of service and mobility? Is it growing? It's going ballistic. This is one of 67 Amazon warehouses just in the United States. One of 67. Service and mobility isn't a trend. Final challenge. Is this one of those products? Services. It's meant to give you time back. It's meant to help you reclaim hours to do what you thought of. It's a good question. Show of hands if that fast lube experience was on anybody's list in the beginning. Anyone. Mine either. I am coming back to this one more time. Did your answer change? Did it change from the first time you saw this picture? Did driving to the fast lube save you an hour by combining mobility and service? Doesn't fit the model. That's my friend Scott up there. Last year, he challenged me on that very boat, on that concept. Rocked my world. I have taken this thing directions I never thought I would take it. Simple concept, simple solution. I wasn't wrong. I wasn't wrong for thinking the fast lube experience was the upgrade. I mean, it is. It is an upgrade. That's a dealership. I mean, maybe better quality, better experience. Certainly not a time saver. Took that picture in Stillwater last week. The fast lube experience, the dealership, they did not feel like this. They didn't feel like this in experience, and they certainly didn't do it in time. So what if? What if we could do this with a fast lube experience? What if we could bring it to you? Book it. Come to your office. Come to your house. Tablet, smartphone, you name the device. Service, mobility. It would feel like this, as I imagine it. I call it the intersection of service and mobility in the routine automotive space, change lane. Simple concept, simple solution. It's a friend of mine's neighbor who took that photo. Our idea is to replace the business model of drop it off and wait with drive it in and jack it up. An experience that we think is so profoundly different, you'll never look at automotive care the same again. If you could go online and book that service to come to your office this afternoon or your home tonight, how many of you would? And how many of the 1.2 million people who get oil changes every single day just in the United States might do the same? Back at Amazon, not being paid to promote them, I want you to think about each and every one of those packages representing an hour of somebody's life back. An hour of somebody's life reclaimed, each package. What would the world be like if we could do the same? If we could do the same by simply changing the order of things around and bringing the oil change to the consumer. In the beginning, I asked everyone to think about what you do with an hour. I thought it fitting I end it by sharing with you what I would do with mine. Meet Isabel, George, and Lily. And thank you for giving me the opportunity here to tell you about the story of Changeling.
Okay, there we go. All right, Steve Karpels is up next, worldwide journey to a brand called Me. And Steve is combining some work stuff with some personal reflection with some fabulous travels that he has had. So please welcome Steve.
I'm going to have to ask you to forgive me because I normally never use a script, but I found that's the only way I'm going to be able to stay on this style of speaking. I'm Steve Karpels, and today we're going to take a worldwide journey to the brand called Me. Venture travel is my passion, and strategic marketing is my avocation. And I'm also an amateur photographer, so we're going to use those pictures, and Ken, we can get started. Let's start our journey. We begin here at 17,000 feet in the Cordillera Huayhuash of northern Peru in the Andes. And I want to use these photos as an inspiration, but you guys are going to be doing all the work. I'm going to ask you to sit and reflect and ponder and think about your own personal brand. I'm going to be asking the questions. You're going to come up with the answers. And I will disclaim this was not my tent. But for the next 6 minutes, I do want you to hang loose. I want you to have fun. I want you to be inspired by the natural beauty that you'll see across our planet and to self-reflect and jot down perhaps any key insights that you may have about yourself. The work we're going to do requires you to relax. Much like yoga, this is a practice. It's ongoing. There are no right answers. There's no wrong answers. But there are a lot of questions, and I ask you to use these questions as a framework in your journey as you articulate your own personal brand. So let's begin. I suggest that you begin by thinking about your roots. Start by thinking about your family, your traditions, and your background. How have these things shaped your values and your own personal perspective? Next, think about a traditional SWOT analysis. You know, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What are your innate strengths? What are your core competencies? And even more importantly, what skills have you built because of the experiences that you individually have had? Where do you struggle? What are those things that challenge you the most? How can you mitigate these or transform them into positive factors and attributes to help you do more in the world? This is a picture of Iguazu Falls in Argentina. Let's shift from looking inside of ourselves and start to reflect on the environment that's around you. What's changing in your world, and how will these things affect you in the future? And more importantly, what emerging opportunities do you foresee that you can harvest? And on the flip side, what is it that can potentially get in your way? What could stymie your growth? What could stymie your personal fulfillment? As we move on, I ask you to think about your goals, both short-term and longer-term. To quote Jim Collins, really what we're talking about here is what is your BHAG, your big, hairy, audacious goal. This is your vision. that seemingly unattainable but desired thing that you want to achieve. And next, ask yourself the question, how are you going to get there? This journey that you'll take is your mission statement. And as you articulate your core values, these will guide you as you move forward towards your vision. And think about how you differentiate yourself. We all live in a very crowded world with very little time. How do you make yourself relevant to those that matter? In a quick story I learned, this is one of hundreds of varieties in the rainforest. Why? Butterflies eat one type of plant. And because of the biodiversity in the rainforest, you have hundreds of different types of butterflies. Next, ask yourself, what are you personally passionate about? What makes you get up in the morning? What is that very core purpose for your absolute being? What difference are you going to make in the world, as we've heard from some of the other speakers today? And what is it that you offer? What is your value? How do you provide value as it's perceived by others? The value in this picture here is not the tulips. They get plowed under the field as fertilizer. The value here is underground. It's the bulbs that they harvest and sell. Think about that as you think about your personal value. A local picture of Itasca. How do others see you? And is this a reflection that you want to project? Is it an authentic view of the real you? Is this the image that you want people to see of yourself? And what is it that makes you memorable? What's substantive about you below the surface, like in the case of an iceberg, that will make you enduring to the people around you, to your family, and to your world? All of these questions distill down to what is it that you are really all about. This, I would tell you, is the heart and soul of who you are. It is the thing that will never change. And in the parlance of marketing and branding, we call this your personal brand essence. As you think about these things, I encourage you to ask yourself, what will be your lasting legacy? It must necessarily be built around a solid foundation of the elements that we've pondered here today. Otherwise, it won't be authentic. And after articulating the what, I encourage you to think about the things you can do to make your brand soar. How are you going to make it stand out from others in a way that's truly meaningful? That's Torrey Pines for all of you golfers who watched the tournament last week. And finally, think about how you can help others become aware of the very gifts that you have to offer. What can you do to merchandise your brand? And you need to do that. It doesn't just happen all on its own. So this brings us full circle. We are back looking 180 degrees in the other direction to 17,000 feet in the Andes. I want you to know that I've done this personal work and soul searching and define my own personal purpose as helping others achieve their dreams and their aspirations. I hope that I have accomplished a bit of this today and helped you start your own personal journeys. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. And our last presenter, Dina Simon, will be talking about her journey with her daughter. So we go from one journey to another journey, and she will talk about the nonprofit she and her daughter started called Simon Says Give.
Yes, after hearing all these amazing speeches and a lot of themes that were in there, I'm like, oh, I need to say something different in my 20 seconds per slide. But Ken, I'm ready. I'm ready to roll. So when you were 7, did you know what you wanted to be when you grew up? I am honored here today to tell the story of Mandy Simon, who is the founder of a 501c3, which we will share a little bit about how we got started and what we do. But she is now 9. She would be here today, but she's in 4th grade at school. She started when she was 5, asking for donations for her birthday in August instead of birthday gifts for herself. So that's really where this all started, from her heart. And with an August birthday, she wanted to do backpacks because of back to school time. So this is a photo of Mandy and the backpacks. Mandy has a huge heart and would see in this picture not darkness, not despair. She would see crystal clear, there's got to be something that we can do. How can we help this mom? How can we help this child? And so with that huge heart, she came to us and said, I want to do something. I want to make an impact. So she came to me, her mom, with a business plan. We recorded a 10-minute conversation. She truly had a business plan as to what she wanted to do. She was extremely passionate about it, and as time continued on in a few short months, and we knew that she meant business, we knew that we meant business as well. She approached a 12-year-old friend that helped create our logo, so it's all about kids being involved. So 12-year-old Vicky created our logo, Simon Says Give, with the last name Simon. That was pretty easy, Simon Says Give. And Darren from Irish Titan was very quick to say, we want to help Mandy spread her story, and helped create our website, so we're grateful for that. There's 16.1 million children in the United States that are at the poverty line or below. Here in the United States, 16.1 million. Mandy originally wanted to help the world, and her mom said, can we just start here in the U.S., because it's a whole lot easier to get 501c3 here. We had to pick a place to start, so we picked kids' birthdays. We provide birthday celebrations to kids that come from families at the poverty line or below, and we provide them with a birthday celebration with a cake and a gift in need and a gift for fun. So this has been our very first birthday. We involve kids to get together to help us, and so it's really twofold, helping the kids that need and getting kids engaged to help us, to help support us. So we had 50 bags that were donated from a school in Lakeville, 2 third-grade classes that went home, told their parents about an article that they read about Mandy. And then we get kids involved that volunteer for birthday parties. And so this is one of Mandy's friends, Reagan, who had a December birthday. And Reagan asked for very specific donations for 2 of our Simon Says Give girls that we celebrated their birthday. Local areas that provide birthday celebrations, this is I Heart Art for Kid, donated their space. The connections that Mandy has been able to make with the kids that we've celebrated, which is over 66 birthdays in our first 7 months last year of launching, is amazing. So this is from Bailey saying, thanks for starting Simon Says Give, my best birthday ever, from Bailey. Local companies have joined forces. Connie, who's here from Big Inc., and then Express Employment Professionals, my former organization, said we'd love to support Mandy, and how can we do so over the holidays, and created drop boxes that were out in about 60 businesses locally so that we could start for our backpack drive for this next year. In 2012, for Mandy's birthday, we did 50 backpacks fully loaded, and we provided them out into the North Minneapolis community, where Mandy and volunteers were able to engage with the children, pick out that perfect backpack, and get that child ready to go off to school in style. This is one of my favorite photos. We actually took this. I've never seen so many crayons in my life, and that was only at 50 backpacks. But that thrill of going to the store as a kid and having all your new supplies, going off to school, there's something called self-esteem in that, and these kids were just over the top excited. This is a representation of where we're at right now. So we did 50 backpacks last year. We have right now in storage 200 backpacks fully loaded with everything from paper to pens to calculators for the 2013 backpack drive. And we'll continue that throughout the year, and our goal this year in 2013 is 1,000. Mandy has been able to do things that most kids her age in class don't get to do with her. She spoke at Rotary, and she's done some Skype interviews, and she's had some press, and she's happy to tell her story, her passion, and then also just to recruit her friends, other kids that want to get involved. So as that really being our mission to get other kids engaged in birthday parties, we want volunteer kids to come and provide their time and talent. These are 2 young high school girls that came to help make beads with the birthday party. So that interaction is really where the rubber meets the road, and why we really took the time to make this 501c3 a reality so others could join forces. Mandy would tell you her greatest joy of last year in starting this is the new friends that she has been able to make. A birthday party may last 2 hours, but these connections we have carried on, and we stay connected to the families, and it's been amazing. As a mom, my greatest surprise in this journey last year is the connections that we have made with the families, and that these moms and dads who are so amazing have allowed us to celebrate their kids. We've stayed very connected with emails and texts and phone calls throughout the year to see other things that we can do for them. Our future is whatever we would like it to be. Since Mandy is only 9 today, we have lots of time. We are looking at a possibility of a one-for-one model, purchase a birthday in a box, and we'll donate a birthday to a kid in need. So those are definitely some of the things that we're looking at, and we do plan to stay locally as much as possible in the United States until Mandy gets older. So Simon says give, Mandy would say give, and give with all your heart, and then you will receive. And we are just thrilled to have this journey. We launched in 2012, so we only had about 7 months last year to tell our story, and honored to have the time to tell our story, so thank you.
Wow, another fabulous group of presenters. Thank you all for presenting, and thank you all for being here. Apologize it ran a little long, but I thought it was worth it. Typically, we do try to finish at 1, so next time, hopefully we'll get there. But again, the presenters were fabulous. Thank you all for doing it. Thank you for being here.